morning, ladies and gentlemen. We'll start the meeting in 1 minute. On va commencer la réunion dans 1 minute.
Just so you know, Sean, we're actually having accumulation in the verbs. It's staying on the ground.
You gotta go by the airport.
I gotta live here, so that's what people think of it.
Mesdames et messieurs, et bienvenue au Conseil municipal pour la ville d'Ottawa.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 27th of April meeting.
Our meeting of April 27th, 2022. I want to begin today's meeting by acknowledging that tomorrow, April 28th, is National Day of Mourning. This day is dedicated to remembering those who have lost their lives or suffered injury on the job or experienced a work-related tragedy. Nous nous rappelons ceux qui sont morts ou
We would like to recognize tomorrow that all the workers that were deceased or were injured on the workplace. Alors aujourd'hui,
workplace tragedies. We mark this solemn day with renewed commitment to preventing further injuries, illnesses, and deaths. I also want to take this opportunity to honor the victims of the tragic explosion and fire which occurred at Eastway Tank on January 13th this year. I'd like to invite everyone who was able to stand for a moment of personal reflection as we pay our respects to those 6 individuals who lost their lives that day, and as we offer our deepest condolences to their families, friends, and co-workers. Merci. Merci. Thank you. This morning, I have the honor of presenting the Mayor's City Builder Award to 2 recipients. This award recognizes people who have demonstrated an extraordinary commitment to making our city a better place through volunteerism or exemplary action. Ce prix vise à récompenser.
this award recognizes an individual who demonstrated a deep commitment to making our city a better place through their outstanding volunteer service or exemplary initiative.
Come forward. I ask his councillor, Tim Tierney, to join us for the presentation, and Tim's here with his family as well. It's great to see them. Welcome, Tim. And welcome, Councillor Tierney. Tim McIntyre is being recognized for raising money for charities and for many ways he supports the community and those in need. Every year in late summer, Tim organizes Duff Fest to raise money for a selected charity. I'm assuming that's a golf tournament.
No, it's a concert.
It's a concert. Okay, I thought it might be Duff Beer from The Simpsons. Last year, he helped raise nearly $4,000 for the Children's Aid Foundation of Ottawa, an organization that empowers and supports children growing up in the child welfare system. Tim is an adept communicator and fundraiser with a big heart and a passion for his community. Every February, he gets together with the North Gloucester Men's Hockey League for their annual Winter Classic outdoor hockey tournament that raises money for breast cancer awareness. Last year, nearly $5,000 was raised, and in 2020, they raised more than $2,100 for Breast Cancer Action, a support and resource center for those impacted with a breast cancer diagnosis. Tim McIntyre personifies the qualities of volunteerism and exemplary action that define a city builder. Tim personnifie le service bénévole et les initiatives.
He personifies the exemplary volunteer service initiative that characterize the city's builder.
Tim Tierney, we'd like to present you with the Mayor City Builder Award. Thank you for giving so much back to your community. Félicitations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Come on up here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, of course, Tim Tierney. I don't have anything really prepared. I just was talking with Margot, my wife, and she said, well, thank everybody in the room. They do a lot of great work for Ottawa. And I just do want to thank everybody here as a member of council for what you do for our community. Ottawa is a fantastic city, and we live in a wonderful ward of Beacon Hill, Cedarville. I really don't view this as community building. I really just see the work that we do, and I'm talking about Margot, myself, and my family, about unlocking the potential of our community. Not every kid that has the right answer in their head raises their hand. Not every person that is interested in running a marathon steps out the door and does that first 2K, 5K, 10K, whatever have you. And not every neighbor leaves their house and goes and knocks on a door to learn about their neighbors and learn from their neighbors. So we put these events together, and after we put them together, it's really the community that fills the sails and powers them down the stream. I just view what we do as just doing our part to put the boat in the water. So it's a big honor. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do appreciate it. And on behalf of my kids, I want to thank you for giving them an excuse to get out of school today. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Tim. I now have the pleasure of presenting the Mayor City Builder Award to the Streetcar 696 team of volunteers. They've got a great turnout here today. I'm pleased to welcome Guillaume Laplante, who became the project coordinator in 2004. And I'd like to invite, I think we should have all the members come up here. All right, come on up. And your city councillor, Jean Cloutier, to join us. Bonjour, Jean. Et Guillaume par ici. Come on in,
Please
everyone.
come forward.
Welcome. Bienvenue. How you doing? Good, good. Quite the crew here. This is great.
These are the hard workers.
Yeah. Well, I'm pleased to welcome Raum and your team here. This restoration project started back in 2000 when a group of volunteers acquired what remained of the original streetcar and began salvaging parts to rebuild a replica of Ottawa Streetcar 696. The group includes active and retired OC Transpo employees and rail enthusiasts who have donated their time and their expertise. Ce groupe comprend des employés actifs et à la retraite.
This group includes active and retired OC Transpo employees, as well as trail enthusiasts who have contributed time and knowledge to this project.
A labor of love requiring skill and lots of slow, painstaking work. Over the years, many volunteers have contributed to the project, and it's been a learning experience for many, including students from Rideau High School, carpentry and mechanic classes. This wonderful contribution of our community is helping to bring back a piece of Ottawa's transit history, and the team's efforts have highlighted a unique and fascinating part of our city's heritage. By 1895, Ottawa had 48 kilometers of track carrying 68 streetcars, and ridership by the end of that year had increased to 4.1 million. The 696 is one of 2 remaining streetcars out of a total of 33 that were built right here in Ottawa between 1913 and 1917 by the Ottawa Electric Railway Company. For 4 decades, until it was retired in 1958, 696 carried passengers between Rockcliffe Park and Britannia, a favorite weekend getaway spot. The last streetcar served Ottawa riders ended service in May 1959. I want to thank all of the volunteers who have put many, many hours, thousands of hours of work in this impressive project that helps to bring a bygone era alive.
I would like to thank all the volunteers who have dedicated many hours of work to this impressive project.
And I think we have curiosity about what it was like to hop on board and take a ride down Spark Street. And I remember visiting your operation there. Very impressive, and it's great to see it coming back to life. So Raum, on behalf of Jean Cloutier, your city councillor, and all of my colleagues on the city council, congratulations on receiving this meeting's City Builder Award. Félicitations.
Merci beaucoup.
So we'll just come on out in front here, Raum and Jean.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's a pleasure to, after so many years of hard labor, and it's because of this great team here that's where we're at now. And then we're perseverant, and then we just, like my wife always said, you're just like a dog. Don't let go of the bone until you got it. So yes, so I'd like to at the same time. And one thing I would like to mention is one of the reason I keep on going is the Rideau High School participating from high schools and all this, and then a diversion program from the provincial court. Kids got to do 15 to 20 to 30 hours of community service. So we went since 2000. Barry had started this program, and we gone through about 150 kids that's gone through the, and then it's unbelievable how much those kids has talent. Just one example, one kid that didn't know how to weld. I showed him one pass, and then he made a pass beside mine, and I got 40 years of welding, and he just did exactly the same. So he said, "You've done that before?" He said, "No," but he said, "You got talent in this." So it brings out the talents out of the kids. They don't know that they have. So that's one of the reasons I stick with this great project. So then. And now we'd like to thank all the people that has enjoyed, and especially the sponsors. That's one of the reasons they joined in, because it's going to be a running car. So I figure we got about over $200,000 dollars invested into this from different Lucan Metal, Wood Source, and many other company that pitched in to make sure that this project is a success. So that's pretty well. Thank you for everybody who supported this great program, and OC Transpo supplying the building to work in it. So we had moved in 2011, and now we're into 164 Colonnade on OC Transpo property. So no, it's a great project, and I think one day we'll see it running at Lansdowne Park to picking up people from the canal and bringing it to Aberdeen building and hop on, hop off. And that'd be a great target to like to see. So thank you very much for your great support. Before I go, and I got this picture frame for the back to the city. It's a window frame from the original 696, and with the poster inside for all the people was involved into this great project. So this was belonging to the city of Ottawa, and I'm returning to the city of Ottawa. Thank you.
Madam Deputy Clerk, roll call, please.
Councillor Luloff.
Present.
Councillor Dudas. Councillor Harder. Councillor Curry. Here. Councillor El-Shantiri.
Present.
Councillor Gower.
EC.
Councillor Kavanagh. Here. Councillor Shirley.
Here.
Councillor Eglai.
Here.
Councillor Deans.
Here.
Councillor Tierney.
Présent.
Conseiller Fleury.
Bonjour.
Councillor King.
Here.
Councillor McKenney.
Present.
Councillor Leeper.
Here.
Councillor Brockington.
Here.
Councillor Menard.
Here.
Conseiller Cloutier.
Présent.
Councillor Kitts.
Here.
Councillor Darousse.
Here.
Councillor Moffat.
Here.
Councillor Meehan.
Here.
Councillor Hubley.
Here.
Mayor Watson.
You see?
Le quorum est atteint, Monsieur le maire.
See?
You
Confirmation.
have quorum. So the adoption of the minutes for the April meeting adopted. Y a-t-il des déclarations de conflits d'intérêts, y compris ceux découlant de réunions antérieures?
Communications is presented. Regrets, no regrets filed to date. Motion to introduce reports. Motion portant présentation de rapport. Conseiller Kitts, s'il vous plaît, appuyé par conseiller Leeper.
Que le rapport numéro 26 du comité du patrimoine bâti, rapport numéro
That the
25
Built Heritage Subcommittee Report 26, that the Community and Protective Service Committee Report 25, the Standing Committee on Environmental Protection, Water and Waste Management Report 22, Planning Committee Report 59, Transit Commission Report 18, and the report from the City Clerk entitled Summary of Oral and Written Public Submissions for Items Subject to the Planning Act, Explanation Requirements, at the City Council meeting of April 13, 2022, be received and considered.
So, colleagues, late yesterday afternoon, we added a verbal update by our city manager and Kim Ayotte and the chief of police. The chief is on a tight timeline, as you can imagine, dealing with issues arising from, potentially arising from this weekend's motorcycle event. So I'd ask, we have a half hour with the chief, so I'm going to ask the chief to start it off and do a presentation, and then questions to the chief will be the first half hour, and then we'll go to Steve Kanellakis or Kim Ayotte for other items. So Chief, welcome. Thank you for being here. And sorry, I meant to ask Councillor El-Shantiri to offer the opening introduction.
It's all good, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. And with the chief today, we have Deputy Chief Paul Burnett and also Deputy Chief, she's not with us today, but only we have Paul here, Paul Burnett with us here. And anyway, other, they will give us a brief, and there's an open remark by the chief. And then, as you said, Mr. Mayor, will go to Q&A for half an hour. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chair El-Shantiri. Good morning, Mayor and members of council. We're here today to brief you on the operational plan that we have in place to address Rolling Thunder event coming this weekend. As indicated by the chair, I'm here today with Deputy Chief Paul Burnett. I want to begin by addressing the community. We've heard your concerns. We know that you are still healing from the disruption and criminality the unlawful protests brought to our streets earlier this year. This is a proud and vibrant part of the city, and we understand that it has had an impact on all the residents and a pronounced impact on many in our marginalized communities. Your police service will not allow for unsafe or unlawful conditions that could lead to another unlawful protest. In the past weeks, we have been speaking with businesses, residents, local councillors, and community leaders. We've heard the concerns about access to residential neighborhoods, noise, improper driving, parking, acts of hate or intolerance, and other criminality. That input has been a major factor in our planning for these and other operations. The right to lawful and peaceful demonstrations will always be protected by our service. We do so almost every day in the capital with protests, demonstrations, and rallies on any number of issues. We have examined all of our legal authorities, and we have no ability to prevent any individuals from coming to the Capitol to voice their concerns to government or hold events to support their cause. This is a right enshrined in the Charter. Along with rights, there are responsibilities that every individual has. and it is the responsibility of police to uphold the law and preserve the peace. I want to be as open as possible in our communications so that everybody understands what they can expect. Individuals associated with this event are expected to arrive on Friday, with many of the main activities occurring on Saturday. It is too early to provide information on expected numbers, but we know that organizers have said they expect more than 500 motorcycles. We expect that many of the individuals will be staying in downtown local hotels. We are also aware of a site in the rural area of Eagleson Road where some Rolling Thunder participants are gathering this weekend. This area will see increased police presence and possible traffic delays. We're aware of a church in the Vanier area known to be frequented by these groups. They may host an event this weekend. We do not yet know how many people may attend in other types of vehicles or on foot. There are other events, including the church service, that are scheduled for Sunday. At this point, they have said that they will depart the city following their planned events. The joint position of the City of Ottawa and the Ottawa Police is that no motor vehicle-based protest, rally, or event will be allowed to occur in designated downtown areas. This includes areas near and around Parliament Hill and the National War Memorial and applies to all demonstrations, rallies, and events. Organizers have been advised of this. The focus of our plan will be on public safety, maintaining the right to protest and enforcing all applicable laws. The plan draws on extra police resources and is designed to meet the issues we may face. We have already begun to put this plan in place. Residents will see a large police presence, including by-law and parking enforcement officers. There will be a significant increase in officers from the Ontario Provincial Police, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and other municipal police jurisdictions to execute the plan. Controlled intersections, no parking and no stopping areas, road closures, vehicle towing, and ticketing will be part of the enforcement strategy to support our public safety efforts. A motor vehicle-based event exclusion zone in the downtown area has been established. No motor vehicles involved in any event, rally, protest, or demonstration are permitted inside this zone. However, the roads are not closed. Residential and business traffic, as well as pedestrian, cyclists, and public transit will be permitted. There will be heavy city trucks, physical barriers such as fencing, and police officers to control and restrict access to certain areas in the downtown core to maintain public safety. We have developed multiple contingencies, including traffic officers and quick response teams that will be ready to provide an immediate police response to issues throughout the city. The event organizers plan to hold a ride on Saturday afternoon. It will be a portion of the city. It will enter a portion of the city and depart using the Nicholas on-ramp to Highway 417. There will be a heavy police presence monitoring this ride, backed up by tow trucks and physical barriers. I want to be clear with both organizers and participants. You will be held accountable for your actions before, during, and after events. We will continue to monitor online and open source commentary related to all events. Threatening or intimidating behaviors will be addressed with all appropriate enforcement action. Investigative teams, including our hate crime unit, are in place, focused on gathering evidence and laying charges where appropriate. The display of symbols of hate, like swastikas, will result in charges. The targeting of any community events will result in a police and enforcement response. As we do with every event, we've reached out to the Rolling Thunder organizers to ensure we understand their plans. We do this for every event, from football games to concerts to rallies to protests. This is never meant to support any specific cause, but to ensure there are clear lines of communication and the public safety issues are addressed. We are reaching out to individuals and groups who plan to attend to express their opposition to this event to understand their plans as well. We continue to finalize our planning to ensure all of this event is peaceful, lawful, and orderly. I will continue to update our board, council, and public in the days ahead. Finally, we've heard from the community and take seriously the concerns raised. You will see that in our planning and the execution of our plan. It's important we set context and expectations. We see a lot of conflict online over this event. much of it from people in groups behind keyboards far away who want to drive social discord. I absolutely do not want to see this conflict on our streets. This is an open and peaceful city. Given the size of our jurisdiction, you will see people on motorcycles and individuals in the downtown core who have absolutely nothing to do this event. We need to be respectful to one another. It is my goal that the operation we have in place will reassure our residents and businesses and allow you to enjoy your community through this weekend and moving on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Great. So questions, and please be respectful of the chief's time. Councillor McKenney.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thank you to the chief for coming this morning and presenting us with the plan to date. I do believe that with what you've put in place, the chance of an illegal occupation occurring, similar to what happened in February, is much, much less likely. But what we are looking at, and you have addressed it, is serious disruption to a community, a neighborhood, a residential neighborhood that is still traumatized and living with fear of, loud noises. And I think that it can't be stressed enough what that means. I get complaints about noise now that I never would have before. I think also, and I'll address this with Steve Kanellakis and Kim later, and we've been working closely on the parking and the no-go zone. But we also want to be, we also have to ensure that we're thinking about the consequences on other neighborhoods and what that means. Now, my real concerns are not just the convoy of motorcycles, but what we saw in the last illegal occupation was the weekends became very dangerous, and mostly not because the trucks were still parked on Kent and O'Connor, et cetera, but because of the others who were sympathetic to the cause, this extremist cause, coming into our city and causing that type of disruption. So I just want to hear, what the plans are to ensure that, people coming in, parking, walking around, and intimidating and harassing residents is outside of the convoy.
So as I indicated, I completely agree with you around the trauma and harm that the past events have committed on our community and to our residents. That has been the fundamental place where we've started from all of our planning efforts. And you are absolutely right that these events continually seem to draw a disparate group of people that are very hard to individually identify. A bunch of different groups come together with a bunch of different perspectives on what they want to present, what they want to achieve. We continue to work with our intelligence partners through the RCMP, the OPP, CSIS, other national security groups, and other municipal police agencies to make sure we have the most timely, most relevant information, and that is embedded in all of our planning. What you will see is us be responsive to traffic issues, to noise issues, and also to potential pedestrian and demonstration issues. So we're very alive to the concerns in the community and our need to be present on foot, readily available within our communities so that they know that they are safe where they live.
Thank you. I appreciate that. One other question. It's been circulated on different Facebook posts that the organizer for the Poutine Fest at City Hall this weekend has invited convoy members to come down for free food, something about best costume. So we've got somebody at City Hall, on the grounds of City Hall, an organizer of this event, encouraging this type of behavior. Has anybody been in touch with this organizer to explicitly indicate that there will be absolutely no tolerance on the grounds of City Hall or anywhere in the neighborhood for the type of behavior that he is welcoming onto his event?
So I can't speak in terms of licensing or permitting perspective, but our hope today and our hope through all of the conversations we've had is that we speak to everyone who has a position on this and everyone who has a stake in this, and that's everyone who's attending and every resident of our community, to let them know what our response will be, how we see this unfolding, and what our expectations of people participating in this are. We do have active plans that are ready to be used and employed in and around City Hall and all of the downtown core to be responsive to any issues that may arise.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that as well. So I'm just going to very quickly say that, people are they're nervous, but they're also fed up. And residents that I'm hearing from are not going to take any incursion into their neighborhoods by white supremacists, racists, extreme groups, people coming into the city espousing those views, and they're not going to take it lightly. And I know that I'm going to be out on the street all weekend as well, and watching and reporting and hoping to take immediate action on anything that is a threat to any of our residential neighborhoods, our residents, our small businesses, the people who work in those businesses, and to give the message as clearly as possible that we don't welcome this type of behavior in our city. So. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you, Councillor McKinney. Just a reminder, we've got about 6 people and the chief has 20 minutes. So we're going to stop the 5-minute rule, and please ask just 1 or 2 brief questions, and we'll have 1 or 2 brief answers to respect the chief's time. So Councillor Menard, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Just to start off on process, I think it's important, given these events are reoccurring and the harm that they've caused, that councillors get briefings on these things. There's been no briefing at all to my office with significant activity slated to happen through my ward as well as other wards. So this is a process piece that needs to start to change. We need to get information right away when these sorts of things are being planned. I don't want to receive it on Twitter or something else to my email. I'd like to have that discussion with city staff and OPS. So on the process point, it's important that be acknowledged and changed in the future. On that point, my concern is the residential areas. Right now, I'm seeing maps that are being produced by some of these organizers that have laydown areas on Sunnyside, laydown areas on Hopewell, where there's a large school with 900 students, community center. I'm seeing laydown areas at the RA Center, as well as through Old Ottawa East and onto Bronson. So, and these are several, there's not just the one smaller group that's been indicated, there's a larger group here too, through Old Ottawa East. So what is the plan? And this could be the city staff in terms of barriers or whatnot, local traffic only, whatever it might be. What is the plan for the protection of residential areas when this is occurring? Specifically, I'm interested in Hopewell, Sunnyside, residential areas that there's plans for through Old Ottawa East as well.
So what I can tell you is we continue to be engaged with city staff actively from day one in terms of identifying exclusionary zones. And those are based on intelligence and information that we're gathering around where the core crux of the demonstration or event is planned to occur. So the footprint you've seen, the city layout last night, incorporates all of that area and all of those restriction zones. I believe you'll hear from Kim Ayotte and Steve Kanalakis shortly around the development and ongoing work we're doing around a parking plan and a no stopping plan. And those will be laid out later on today, early tomorrow, in terms of how we're going to manage that area. In terms of the briefings, what I can tell you is that we've substantively not yet seen any area that would directly affect your ward, and we have been briefing on an ongoing basis the councillors affected in the area we've identified, and we will include you in those moving ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen 2 maps directly from the organizers in the ward. So, you know, it's important. This also spills over into our ward. And I didn't hear a plan there for those areas. The last question I'll ask is there's a CN ride for CHEO happening this week as well. And I'm really concerned about the overlap there. There's a lot of streets that are being, you know, closed for that purpose, along Riverside, along QED, Colonel By, other areas through our city, through our core. So what has the planning been for that route that's going to be taking place with CN Ride for CHEO?
So we've been in contact from very beginning with the organizers and coordinators, myself, with the CEO, Alex Munter, as well as members of the team with all of the organizing staff. There is no overlap. That is an independent event that we are staffing, resourcing, and planning around to protect the integrity of, because it is a fundamentally important event to our community, and we will make sure that it goes off and it is safe for all of the participants.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Brockington.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, can you please indicate, so first of all, Veterans Affairs Canada has confirmed that the protection and maintaining order at the National War Memorial is the responsibility of the Ottawa Police Service. You may recall during the occupation a long list of inappropriate and illegal behaviors that occurred on this sacred site. How will the Ottawa Police Service protect and maintain order at the National War Memorial this weekend?
As I indicated, we have plans in place to actually not only manage vehicular traffic, but manage foot traffic, pedestrians in and around the area, and manage any sort of demonstrations that would occur in or around that area. It's a sacred place to all Canadians. So we absolutely appreciate our responsibility to protect it, and we are developing plans to ensure that that is done.
Can you, though, elaborate? Will you have uniformed officers on site? Will the memorial be fenced off and not accessible to the public, or will it be accessible but uniformed officers to maintain order?
So without getting into the specifics of the operational plan, what I can say is that there is no intention at this point, because there's been no request to actually fence off that area. We will have officers readily available in around the area on foot, as I'd indicated before, ready to respond to any sort of incident that would occur. So we do have planning specifically around protecting and maintaining lawfulness and order within the areas that have been designated no vehicles.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Cossey-Fleury, please.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, Chief, and I'll begin with thank yous for your availability and your team's availability to meet with the BIAs in recent times. And I know that that availability is much appreciated. I know that Councillor King and Councillor McKenney also appreciate that their BIAs are engaged. Because we're short in questions, I'll get right to the point. Could you explain to me and the public, there is a map of a selected route going down Montreal Road and Rideau Street. That is quite concerning and disruptive to communities that live on those corridors or near those corridors, including many local businesses. Could you share with me and clarify what legal environment you have to decide or define which corridors this group might use, and which why the Montreal Road Rideau you believe or don't believe is appropriate?
So I think the best place to start on that is there are bikes attending our city this weekend, and we absolutely have no ability to prevent that from happening. What we can do is we can work to find the least intrusive, least offensive way for our community and the safest way to actually move those bikes through the city, as they've stated they are going to do in a coordinated fashion. We've, through that, worked with city partners and worked with our policing partners and worked with our community representatives through our council to look to identify what we believe is the safest and most unintrusive way to move them in and out of the city. That's what you see before you. It's the area that impacts the least number of residential areas. It is the most flow-throughing to have people attend one area and get back to the Queensway. In an ideal world, we wouldn't have to plan around this at all, but we do. So we're actually looking to work with organizers to find the safest and least harmful way to move them through, and that's what you've seen before you.
I appreciate the effort around the exclusion zone, the vehicle exclusion zones, and the attention to that aspect. Could I understand what OPS commits to doing in relations to protecting the safety, the well-being, and the livability for businesses and residents in the Vanier, Lowertown, and Sandy Hill area? Because the focus is all about those who are visiting. I'm interested in those who are here and whom I represent. So can you clarify what is your expectation and commitment by OPS and city officials in relation to our respective communities?
So I'll thank you for the question, because it's where I started my statement and where I ended my statement. Every piece of planning that we have gone through to date, it has our community safety, community concern, and the acknowledgement of the community harm that has been done in relation to prior events like the illegal occupation, like the last convoy. So the plan we have in place puts that front and center. We have mobile resources that are available. We have dedicated resources to many of the areas that you've identified. I would extend that to the areas in South Canada that have South Richmond, that actually have some of the events that could be occurring there, to different places that events have been identified to occur. We've looked at all of them. We've created a mobility of resources in order to be able to deploy specifically to address those community safety concerns, because they are front of mind for us.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, as you might imagine, I have hundreds more of questions, but I'll respect the process and take it offline with the chief. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Leeper.
Thank you very much, Chief, and I will keep it as brief as possible. The concern that I've expressed to you already is that I feel we need a bigger vehicle exclusion zone to try to protect those residential neighborhoods in Centertown. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about the no stopping plan, which I believe needs to be as broad as absolutely possible. One thing that we haven't heard addressed, but I know concerns have been raised a lot with me, is transit. Residents are concerned about taking transit this weekend with these often hateful and disruptive protesters in town. How are we going to keep our transit system safe?
So I'll actually leave the substantive portion of that to be answered after by Mr. Kanellakis and his team. What I can say is those have been concerns, safety concerns that have been identified, and that both our combined planning team, Ottawa Police, City of Ottawa, have worked on to address and make sure that we do have appropriate plans in place to ensure the safety on transit.
I'm looking for specifics, obviously, and you're not prepared to provide those today, but by the weekend, I know a lot of people who are sending their kids to work in the downtown core are going to be looking for those reassurances. The only other comment I'd make, Chief, is with respect to disruption in the neighborhoods, particularly in Centertown. I continue to hear that that's going to be largely reactive, mobile response teams, et cetera. We're looking for a security presence in the residential neighborhoods in Centertown to ensure that residents who are simply going about their business in Centertown feel safe. So I'm hoping that there's a plan for proactive supervision of the areas to keep people safe.
So absolutely, part of our planning, and I I share your view that having officers present in the area is an important thing. That has been something that we've identified and have actually you will see deployed. There will be an increased number of members in, around, walking, doing proactive patrols within that neighborhood to make sure that the residents have that feeling of safety and security, as well as can be responsive to any issues that arise.
I know we're going to have multiple conversations, I'm sure, in the next few days. So thank you. I'll turn it over. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Leeper. Councillor King, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'd really like to thank the interim chief for his statements around ensuring that there would be no tolerance of chaos in our city. While people have a right to peacefully protest, they do not have a right to do so with a vehicle. And people engaged in unlawful, disruptive demonstrations will be subjected to arrest. So I was pleased to hear the chief really reiterate that, along with reiterating the fact that there will be no tolerance of hate crimes, including racist, anti-Semitic, and homophobic symbols and speech. That will not be tolerated. There are many community concerns, and one is that we understand that the property owner at St. Laurent Mall is not supportive of its property being used as a muster and meeting point, and they have indicated that they are working with the police. Can you provide input on whether the rally will be permitted to use this property? And if so, how police will manage the situation?
So St. Laurent Mall is a piece of private property. That means it is subject to the Trespass to Property Act in terms of any sort of enforcement. We'll continue to work with St. Laurent Mall to identify if they do have issues around people being illegally on their property, and we'll be responsive to that.
I appreciate that answer, and I appreciate the fact that you're working with Morguard. This is a question that I might also pose to city staff, but I'll also pose it to you. What precautions will the city and the police service put in place to ensure that the Ottawa Baseball Stadium will not become a muster or meeting point for the Rolling Thunder rally?
So that has been part of our planning and part of what we've identified as an area of concern for us. I think one of the balance points that we need to be very conscious of, some of coordination of this in order to be able to have a starting point, a roll through, and then ultimately what we all want, an exit point, is important. A disorganized, disarrayed group of bikers in different groups roaming through the city will be more problematic and challenging for us. So we are trying to balance the need of getting them in and getting them out of the city with the need to make sure that we don't facilitate what they're engaged in. So it's a balance we continue to work on, and we'll continue to work with city staff around.
Well, I do appreciate that answer, but I just do want to underscore the fact that obviously the downtown core was disproportionately affected by the occupation in February. But of course, the outer environs, Overbrook, Vanier, were also negatively impacted. And our residents are important, and we want to ensure that there is also a reduced amount of disruption for them, and that illegal activity is not based in those neighborhoods. So obviously my concerns from my community members relate to you. Thank you,
and you
Mr.
have
Mayor.
my absolute agreement on that.
Okay, and unfortunately we've run out of time. The chief has a meeting he has to be at to deal with the exact issue we've been talking about. So Mr. Kanellakos and Mr. Ayotte are here for other questions. So Chief, thank you very much. And we wish all the best to your officers. They have a difficult challenge ahead of them this weekend, but we appreciate you being here and sharing as much information as you can with us at this time. Thank you. So Councillor Aguilar, you were next. Do you have any questions for Steve Kanellakos or Kim Ayotte?
Well, I'm not sure, Mr. Mayor, and I'm disappointed that there's no one from the police services available to answer questions still. That was a very short period of time.
I just mentioned one thing. I think there is the police liaison that you can contact for follow-up questions today. So if people don't have that information, we'll ask Chair El Chantier to get that phone number and email to all members of council.
Well, I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to put it on the record, and if someone from the city can answer it, fine. And if not, I'll share this information with the chair of the Police Services Board and the chief. As the chief was speaking, I received an email from a resident with a photo of an Instagram post by a group called Ottawa Unity Chain. It seems to set out the city in zones. And one of the zones is in my area, Fisher, Baseline, Clyde, and is calling for some sort of, I think it's a counter protest. I only have the screenshot to happen on April the 30th, in inviting people to park on certain streets in my area and to gather to make some sort of a statement, protest statement. So I'm just wondering if the city knows anything about this or the police, and if what steps are being taken. What can I share with my residents about this? Looks like this incursion into their part of the city on the 30th.
Mr. Mayor, Kim Ayotte, I'd be happy to answer that question. Councillor, I can't personally speak to knowing that. If you care to share that with us, we'll certainly let the EOC know, and the police may have more intelligence with regards to all of those different types of counter protests. Happy to hear more about that and to certainly follow up with you to ensure that we're providing the safest environment possible for our residents.
No, I appreciate that. I want to give some messaging to it. It's a very residential neighborhood, and I want to give some direction to my residents as to what they can expect and what they can expect in terms of a response from the city and the police to make sure that they feel comfortable and safe in their surroundings. So I will share it with everyone that I spoke to, and I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay, thank you,
Mr. Mayor. May I just interject? Kim Ayotte had some prepared notes that may preempt some of the questions in terms of bylaw and some of the parking restrictions and everything.
Okay.
I'd appreciate if he was given an opportunity to present those and then take the questions. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ayotte, good point.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bonjour, good morning, everyone. I want to provide you with as much information as possible on the upcoming Rolling Thunder event. The city understands that any motor vehicle-based event is a cause for trauma and anxiety within the community, and we're working with the Ottawa Police to address those concerns. In preparation for this upcoming weekend, we've been working in lockstep with the Ottawa Police Service to ensure our residents feel safe in their community and can enjoy the activities and businesses that they normally would in the downtown core. Effective Monday, April 25th, the city mobilized its Emergency Operations Center. This enables us to coordinate city services more effectively. The NCRCC will be the area command for this event. City staff from Emergency Management, Traffic Management, Transit Services, Ottawa Fire Services, Ottawa Paramedic Services, Bylaw and Regulatory Services are embedded within this centralized command center. The city is working with the Ottawa Police Service to implement their operational plan and a motor vehicle exclusionary zone in the downtown core. The focus is on ensuring that impacts to residents are minimized. As part of this work, city staff are finalizing traffic management plans. The Public Works Department will be installing barriers on some city streets and installing no stopping signage both within and outside the motor vehicle exclusionary zone. While some temporary traffic delays and impacts are expected, the motor vehicle exclusionary zone is meant to allow for normal circulation of pedestrians, cyclists, residents, business traffic, and transit services. There are currently no planned changes to transit services. OC Transpo Customer Service will be providing real-time updates to customers via social media and regular communication channels on any transit impact or detours this weekend. The city's bylaw enforcement officers will be deployed to enforce parking restrictions. All vehicles failing to observe no parking zones will be ticketed and or towed. Nos agents de règlement municipaux seront sur les rues pour assurer que
Our bylaw officers will be on the street to make sure that all rules are followed. All those who don't comply with the exclusion zones will get a ticket or will be towed.
Bylaw officers will ensure city bylaws are obeyed, including no unnecessary motor vehicle or other noise, including speakers, no public urination or defecation, no open air fires, no littering, no lighting or discharging of fireworks. The city is unified with police in a zero tolerance approach to any unlawful activities, intimidating behavior, or displays of hate and racism. Let me repeat that. The city is unified with police in a zero tolerance approach to any unlawful activities, intimidating behavior, and displays of hate and racism. Our top priorities are to promote public safety and to support residents and businesses. We are meeting with business improvement areas to keep them apprised of all plans to address any concerns they may have. We are working with Ottawa Police Services to ensure that the CN Ride, Cycle for Shio, and the Poutine Fest are safe and successful events. The Human Needs Task Force is working with their network of community partners to identify and coordinate any supports required to community members and agencies. We are also working with health partners through the Hospital Emergency Preparedness Committee of Ottawa to assess traffic impacts and safety provisions for healthcare workers who work directly with residents requiring patient care at home. We're also working through those partnerships to prevent impacts to hospitals. In conclusion, I want to highlight that even though some of our activities may not directly be visible to you, many city employees are working long hours right now to help manage the Rolling Thunder event, as well as any impacts on the arrival of the Rolling Thunder participants. We will continue to share information with the residents on any city service impacts through public service announcements, through social media channels, and through our website. I also want to thank the Ottawa Police Service for all the work they're doing. This is a significant effort on their part, and we appreciate their effort and what they're doing to keep our residents safe. Nous continuerons à partager des informations avec les résidents.
We will continue to share information with residents through public advertisements, social networks, and our website. I also want to thank the Ottawa Police Service for their work. It's an important effort on their part to maintain the security of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next on our list is Councillor Dudas, please.
Yes, thank you. Actually, Kim, you mentioned briefly something of what I was going to ask, but I would like a little bit more information. We did find that with the occupation several months ago, that in a number of our downtown social service providers were impacted. The Shepherds was one example, Cornerstone was another. Not only were their clients being harassed, but their staff were, and there were concerns about the need for security and safety. So you mentioned that the Human Needs Task Force has reached out to them. Has that reach out also included an offer of security if required, or any other means that they could, once again, ensure that their clients and their staff are feeling safe and secure while doing their essential work?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for the question. Our reach outs are there to remind them of the mechanisms that they could use to actually report some of these incidents. We have an assurance from police that any type of illegal activity would be dealt with swiftly and quickly. We will help support that. If you or the residents feel they're not getting swift response, then we will ask you to contact the City of Ottawa, and we will help coordinate those responses to ensure that the police do take the action necessary to help protect our citizens and our residents.
So, Kim, I do appreciate the response, and I understand that that is the nature of the beast, that in a lot of these cases it's reactionary, and our police officers will be very busy with this situation. I would suggest, and maybe this, having the chair here, and I appreciate he's taking notes on this, and not having our police chief here, that maybe if police can try to be more proactive in respect to reaching out to these agencies. We saw what happened with the Shepherds of Good Hope. And as I said, the last thing I want to do is find out that some of these clients, these more vulnerable people in our community, are feeling intimidated to use services that they rely on to stay healthy and safe. So I would encourage that, and I would ask if there's any opportunity for future updates, for maybe an update on how police and the city are connecting with these very essential services.
Thank you, Councillor. I agree with you wholeheartedly, and we will work with these services to ensure that they feel protected, and we'll ensure that they get the response that they require to any concerns they may have.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Fleury, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Kim, as well, for the engagement with community associations and BI. It's very helpful to have you at the table with myself and my colleagues in the area that risks being affected. One of the lessons learned from my perspective from the last from the occupation was this issue that there became a void of information in relation to, it became a police response, and then the police response was very focused to areas that they cared about. But we in communities felt and saw a number of incidents and struggled to get attention and responses to that. And your answer to Councillor Dudas in some ways reassures me, but I want to further understand it. If there are areas of risk outside of the corridor that are so far known. How will the city inform and adapt its response to very localized safety concerns and challenges? Again, outside of the defined protest corridor, but that would have significant disturbance and impact on businesses and residents particularly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Fleury, I'd be happy to let you know that the police presence will be far beyond the exclusionary zone. The police, my understanding of the police, and again, I'm not here to speak on behalf of their operational plan, but I can reassure you that the police presence will be in and around the entire downtown area and that they will be patrolling those areas. So at any sign of any activity, and the same with bylaw services, we are out there and we will be issuing tickets. The initial protest, while I can't speak to specifics to it, the initial protest, we were there to support police. We are there to support police again. However, we're taking a much more enhanced enforcement approach immediately. If we see a violation, bylaw officers will be issuing tickets immediately. So there is a bit of a different stance. And I suspect that you will see a lot of police in and around the surrounding areas, not just the vehicle exclusionary zone.
If the city 311 or other sources become aware of particular areas, how is that communication made to those officers or our own teams in bylaw that are on the ground?
We are integrated with the Police Operations Center. So we now have members of our Emergency Operations Center personnel integrated with the Police Operations Center. So we will be able to, as soon as we become aware of a situation, pass that information very quickly through the EOC, through the Police Operations Center, but also through the NCRCC. We also have members in the NCRCC that will be answering any of these concerns and questions. So I believe the response will be quick and effective.
Yeah, I'm worried about that because the NRCRCC, from my perspective, what they showed last time is that if you look back at our first few days, it was like, oh, no one died. It's good. Well, it wasn't good in our neighborhoods. And that became very obvious as the days went by. So I'm worried when decision chains go up to the group who is not accountable to local residents or businesses. So how do we create a bit of a parallel review here to ensure that local residents and businesses outside of the protest zone are as important as those on this defined route?
I'm going to give you my personal assurance that you can hold me personally accountable if you feel that you're not getting the resources you need to deal with your issues. I can't speak for the police, but I can certainly tell you that at this point in time, my main objective is to protect our residents and to focus on that. Secondly, our businesses, and then outwardly others. So please hold me accountable if you feel that we're not doing enough.
Okay. No, I appreciate you stepping forward with that commitment. In terms of parking violations, noise violations from motor vehicles, can you clarify? We get questions or complaints. Is OPS the only organization that enforces noise from parked motorcycles?
I believe our bylaw officers are also able to issue noise-related infractions and tickets. So it's not just police, but they will play an important role, obviously police, as they identify potential bikes that are retrofitted or fitted with illegal mufflers or illegal sound-making devices. Then they can take immediate action, as do our bylaws if they're not rolling and they're stopped and we have an ability to stop them. Yes, I believe that we will also be.
And then will local parking bylaw authorities have independence to ticket and expand to towing, or will they require a review from OPS on that matter based on parking violations?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor, very good question. They have the full authority to use their discretion and ticket immediately if needed for this Rolling Thunder event, and they will do so. our expectation is that they will be issuing as many tickets as possible. If they see an infraction pending other circumstances, they can use their discretion, but for the most part, they will be issuing tickets and parking infractions.
Independently of OPS oversight?
That's correct.
Great. That's good news. Okay. And my final question is in relations to so right now we have an exclusion zone that's identified. There are a lot of residential communities that are not included within that are rightly so concerned. I'm working with school boards for their surface parking lots and how they'll manage that, including the University of Ottawa. And I'm working with colleagues to see what do we do with those residential zones? Can we have a common front? Because I think if we don't in the downtown, we risk making one residential neighborhoods more vulnerable than others. So what is your recommendation to us in terms of local street closures and signage in residential zone near those commercial routes, near the commercial districts and routes that are selected?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor, another good question. I believe that you understand fully the balance that's required to ensure that your businesses in your area also have appropriate parking. But certainly, if you have concerns with regards to vulnerable areas in your community, and you feel that no stopping or no parking should be initiated in that area, I have committed to engage with you and your staff and other councillors and their staff, recognizing that we don't have unlimited resources to make the entire city a no parking zone and the potential effects with that, but we will review each request and prioritize them based on their location, closer to Centertown, et cetera, for those types of events. And we'll prioritize them and try to commit to marking them as no parking, no stopping zones, for which anybody who does do that will be ticketed and removed.
Thank you. I'd like us to do that and I appreciate your answer. I'd like us to do that in a coordinated, comprehensive, so that we don't compete in communities and we have a common effort and lens into that, so that no communities are prioritized or left behind.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll, as I indicated earlier, I'll endeavor to, I got to engage our subject matter experts in traffic and bylaw, and we'll do everything we can to satisfy your needs, given the timeframes that we have and the constraints that we may have faced before us before the weekend arrives.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Leeper.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I have two questions. The first also relates to parking. I'm not anticipating that Hintonburg, Mechanicsville, Wellington Village, Champlain Park neighborhoods that surround Tom Brown and Bayview Station areas would become no parking or no stopping zones. But I don't know what to expect in terms of participant mustering, participants finding places to park that allow them to get downtown via the LRT. And I'm worried about a mass of motorcycles and protest vehicles in the neighborhoods. What I would like to know is whether you're going to have the resources necessary that if we call the city for an enforcement blitz, for example, in the Tom Brown parking lot, at Tunney's Pasture, in the residential neighborhoods around Bayview Station and Tunney's Pasture, will you be able to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor, good question. We certainly will receive your complaint and we'll prioritize it based on what we're dealing with at the time. So I don't want to commit to you today that we'll be able to respond immediately. There's also the consideration of private property versus public property. And obviously private property owners will have the discretion to allow people to park there. So receiving complaints about many motorcycles being parked on private property may not be enforceable by us unless the owner wants us to activate the police with regards to no trespassing requirements. That being said, yes, we'll listen to your complaints and we'll prioritize them based on the circumstances we're dealing with. So no promises, but certainly we will engage in those discussions with you.
Yeah, I think what I would hope is that for the sake of making these protesters feel as unwelcome in Ottawa as possible, if they are exceeding time limits on commercial main streets, for instance, that we're able to get in and ticket or tow for those sort of infractions. The second question was one that unfortunately the chief was not able to answer, certainly to my satisfaction. That's transit. How will people feel confident that they'll be able to travel transit without encountering protesters who are deliberately flouting mask laws and who are engaging in harassing behavior?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councillor. I believe Renee Amilcar is on the line, and perhaps she can speak to the security measures taken by OC Transpo and Transit.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe I can share with you what is our plan for transit this weekend. First, transit services will work with city partners and Ottawa Police Services to support the safe movement of transit customers throughout the city. Our focus will be on the rail through the downtown core and major transit stations in the area. And our Transit Operation Control Center will be actively monitoring the situation in real time. OC Transpo Customer Service will provide real-time updates to customers should there be any transit impacts or detours. OC Transpo Customer Service Red Vest will be deployed on trains, in stations, and at bus stop. Our team will be there to support our customers. Even myself, I will be there. Extra special constables will be working this weekend, and we will also increase on-site station attendance. We will always work to get as close as possible to our transport customers' locations and destinations should the ward closures. And finally, we are prepared to support Ottawa Police and have proactive reach out to them to ensure we can deploy charters as needed. So we are very well prepared for that.
Thank you. That is encouraging, Renee, and I appreciate that reply. And what I also appreciate hearing is that you'll be proactive about reaching out to police. My encouragement would be that if your red vests, if your attendants, if your special constables are seeing issues, that they wouldn't hesitate to bring in police if they need to. So thank you for that reply. The only other thing I guess I would add this morning is I do anticipate that the councillor liaison function will work well again. I want to thank the city for putting that councillor liaison in place for the last occupation, and I'm glad that's returning again. I do have some confidence that if problems begin to develop in the area of Bayview Station or Tunney's Pasture Station, that I'll have that resource and responsiveness. So thank you. Thank you,
Mr. Mayor. Can I just add that the police service is also having a council liaison function for this event for criminal matters and matters that involve the police. So we'll have a dual function. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McKenney, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Kim, for all of your responses. Most of what I was concerned about has been addressed, and I know that we will be speaking probably often over the next couple of days to think about what the requirements are in and around downtown for no-go zones, no parking, no stopping, and ensuring, of course, that that doesn't have unintended consequences on other neighborhoods. I'm quite sensitive to that as well. I just want to point out for parking, when we have areas during the last occupation, that first day as the protesters came into the city, Commissioner Park at Queen and Bay, LeBreton Flats East, those, and then some of the parking areas down on Albert, those areas quickly filled up with illegal parking and of people who just come in and left. But I just want to highlight that there are some areas that really are sensitive to having this type of parking and then the disruption that goes along with it. I have just one additional question, and that again goes back to mufflers on motorcycles. And actually, I have two questions. One is the mufflers on motorcycles. Are we going to be looking at each one as they come in. You know, I don't want to let in 1,000 motorcycles and find out 600 have got mufflers that have been modified, and we can maybe deal with 6. I think that as they're coming into the city, every single bike should be stopped, and it should be, we should determine whether they have a legal muffler, and if they don't, back they go. I'd be happy to go and actually help out with that kind of organizing if you're looking for additional resources. So I just wonder if that's something, it's a question I'm asking if we will consider doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor. We certainly, we don't condone those types of mufflers, and the police have it as part of their plan to try and address them as much as possible. I believe that the 1,000 bikes that are coming into town will be going through the route, or many of them will be going through the route and not be staying. You know, the biker psyche for a certain degree is they love their bikes as much as they love their kids for the most part. And maybe I'm overgeneralizing, but they don't want to leave their bikes in unknown areas. And so I don't know that that's going to be as much of a concern, but we'll certainly address the parking concerns you brought earlier. And with regards to the noise, if the vehicle is moving, it's a police matter. If the vehicle is stopped, it's a bylaw matter, and we'll be happy to, you know, enforce everything we can with regards to what we see while we're there.
Okay, well, I will just, again, they're all coming in the same place. We saw this in the lockdown where every vehicle was stopped going back and forth across the bridge. So I believe that we can do that as a city starting Friday night. Stop every bike, make sure the muffler's not modified, make sure that it doesn't break bylaw restrictions on noise. And if it's a nice quiet bike, they can come in, and if not, again, they can be turned around. So I'll put that out there. And just, I don't know if you have this yet, but the anticipated costs for city taxpayers, again, this weekend that we anticipate.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do not have the anticipated costs, but I suspect that the daily costs will be very similar to what we saw from a daily cost perspective of the first truckers convoy, given the resources that are assigned to this at this point.
Okay. Well, that is a conversation for a later day, but I do look forward to seeing what those are. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Great. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Committee reports, rapport des comités, Build Heritage Subcommittee Report number 26, rapport numéro 26 du sous-comité de patrimoine bâti. Carried?
Carried.
Carried.
Heritage Register Annual Report 2021. Carried?
Carried.
CPS Report number 25, item 3, mise à jour du plan de sécurité et de bien-être dans les collectivités. Received. Item 4, Canada-Ontario Community Housing Benefits Initiative, Canada-Ontario de Logement. Carried. Item 6, Canada-Ontario Community Housing Initiatives 2022-2023, Initiative Canada-Ontario et de Logement Communautaire 2022-2023, adopté. Carried. Item 6, Homelessness Prevention Program Investment Plan 2022-2023. Carried. Standing Committee on Environmental Protection, Water and Waste Management Report number 22, item 7, Multi-Residential Waste Diversion Strategy. Carried.
Carried.
Sorry, who asked for it to be? Is it a number of questions or?
2 questions.
Okay, well, we'll come back to it then. Item 8, Motion Invasive Species Volunteer Program. Carried. Planning Committee Report number 59, rapport numéro 59 du Comité de l'Urbanisme, Zoning Bylaw Amendment 3713 Boris O'Kane Road. And we have a technical amendment on all of the Boris O'Kane road items. Councillor Gower, if you'd like to introduce the first one, seconded by Councillor Moffat, please.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. So whereas the report recommends an amendment to the zoning bylaw to permit low-rise residential dwelling units in 2 park blocks at 3713 Boris O'Kane Road, 672B Dundonald Drive, 673A Dundonald Drive, 673B Dundonald Drive, and 2 unaddressed parcels. And whereas Planning Committee considered the report on April 14th as Planning Committee Agenda 60, Item 2, and whereas Planning Committee carried motion number PLC 2022-61 on April 14th, and whereas amendments to the report are required to correct certain technical errors, therefore be it resolved that Council replace the words Area D to be rezoned from ME1 to R3Y XXX1 in document 1 with the words Area D to be rezoned from MR1 to R3YY XXX1 in accordance with the document attached as Schedule A here too. And therefore be it further resolved that Council strike the following words in document 2, section 2B. The rear yard setback may to a minimum of 4.5 meters for a maximum of 50% of the lot width. The total area of the rear yard must not be less than 54 meters squared, and replace them with the words, the rear yard setback may be reduced to a minimum of 4.5 meters for a maximum of 50% of the lot width. The total area of the rear yard must not be less than 54 meters squared. Be it further resolved, the Council strike the following words in document 2, section 2B. Despite table 6.5, row 6B, the steps of a porch may project 2.5 meters into a required yard, but may be no closer than 0.2 meters from a lot line other than a corner lot line abutting a street from which they can be as close as 0.2 meters. And re-letter the remainder of the section accordingly, and be it further resolved that there be no further notice pursuant to section 3417 of the Planning Act.
Could you explain this, please, Councillor, this motion? On the motion, carried. On the report is amended, carried. Next item is zoning bylaw amendment to 3285 and 3305 Boris O'Kane Road. There's no technical amendment on this one.
Please, I have comments on that one.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
on Boris O'Kane. Would you like us to come back, or is it brief, Councillor?
I could make my comments as to why I'm not supporting it now, or we can come back.
Okay, we'll come back to it.
Yeah.
The next one is zoning bylaw amendment 4775 and 4875 Spratt Road. Modification de règlement de zonage 4775 et 4775 chemin Spratt. We have a technical amendment. Councillor Gower, seconded by Councillor Meehan. Maybe we can just do the where, therefore be it resolved on this one.
Yeah, that can be more straightforward. Thank you. So therefore be it resolved that Council replace the words minor institutional I1 in report recommendation 1 as amended by motion number PLC 2022-63 with the words minor institutional subzone A I1A. And be it further resolved that Council replace the map in document 1 location map with the map attached to scheduled A here too. And therefore be it further resolved that there be no further notice pursuant to section 3417 of the Planning Act.
Okay, so on the amendment as proposed by Councillor Gower, seconded by Councillor Meehan, carried. Carried. On the report as amended, carried. Okay, next is zoning bylaw amendment 1298 Ogilvie Road, modification de règlement de zonage 129 chemin Ogilvie. Another technical amendment by Councillor Gower, seconded by Councillor Tierney. Councillor Gower, please.
Yes, another technical correction. Therefore, be it resolved that Council replace the term R3Y 708 in document 4, section 1A with the term O1, and therefore be it further resolved that Council replace the term O1 in document 4, section 1B and replace it with the term R3Y 708, and therefore be it further resolved that no further notice pursuant to section 3417 of the Planning Act.
The motion is presented, carried. On the report is amended, carried. Item 13, motion changes the Development Charges Act, carried. Transit Commission report number 18, rapport numéro 18 de la Commission de Transport en Commun. A motion, free transit for displaced Ukrainians coming to Ottawa. Councillor McKenney has a amendment.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just wait for that to go up on screen. And here we come. This is just an amending motion moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Brockington, and supported by the original mover, Councillor Hughley. Whereas Transit Commission adopted motion number 2022 TTC 33-02 to offer transit passes to refugees coming from Ukraine. And whereas the motion passed with the direction to staff to examine providing transit passes to all refugees, therefore be it resolved that motion number 2022 TTC 33-02 be amended to delete the words "from Ukraine" from the motion's first resolution. So this will simply have the effect of providing free transit to all refugees into our city. Thank you.
On the motion, carried. Adopté on the motion as amended, carried.
Carried.
Does anyone wish to have anything removed from the bulk consent agenda? Oh, on the bulk consent agenda is presented, carried. Adopté. Go back to those items that were held now. I believe Councillor Fleury, you asked multi-residential waste be held, so the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 3 questions on Pillar 3, which is the segment really relating to pilots and exploring pilots. And I just want to confirm 2 aspects. One, could we consider an area like a multi-use but multi-res area like the Byron Market, where right now a lot of the private operators are coming in and out all day. It's not a coordinated fashion. And I think there's unique opportunity. Is that what would potentially contemplate a future pilot?
So Mayor, because this is dealing with the residential multi-res component, our focus would continue to be on the multi-res.
Okay. When would be the appropriate time if I wanted to see a pilot done in the market? I know it's something that was raised by the BIA Community Association and myself, and I know there's a number of legs in the waste solid waste plan, so just want to make sure I don't miss that window.
Mr. Mayor, absolutely. As part of the overall solid waste master plan, there's certainly opportunities for that, so we can follow up offline with you.
Okay. I want to make sure I don't miss that. And then is it possible for us to get an update? Is it possible for council to get an update on the provinces moving to the producer responsibility? And I know that has a lot of influence on our future plans, including multi-res residential organics, for example, and recycling diversion, I should say. So I wonder if we could get an update, a memo or a communication relating to the current status of those provincial changes.
I mean, I can answer that if you'd like. I mean, we staff have provided some updates on that at our committee, but we also have. I can also get you a briefing with the staff. Andrea Gay-Farley has been leading the efforts to deal with enhanced producer responsibility, and I should have some communication I might be able to share with you as well if I can find that. But regardless, we can definitely get a more recent update. There's multiple ones going on with hazardous waste, as well as the Blue Box strategy and the transition there.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great. Sorry, Councillor Moffat, that was your intervention. Your hand's still up. That's fine. On the report, carried. Adopté. The next item held was by Councillor McKenney. Item 10, zoning bylaw amendment 3285 and 3305 Boris O'Kane Road.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. This one has been the subject of much discussion over the last 2 years. 2 years ago, I raised serious concerns with the process around which a fill permit for this area was rendered by the conservation area, and I did not believe at the time that it implemented our OPA 212, that it was meant always to come back to council for approval of the subdivision plans, and that didn't happen. There's back and forth disagreement with whether the process by which the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority had the full authority to allow for a very large cut and fill permit of some 100 hectares. So, just going forward on this one, I simply cannot be in favor of any further amendments to this subdivision. So yesterday, myself and Councillor Meehan did ask that the Ontario Ombudsman and that our own Auditor General give us a ruling. I think that we need to understand what occurred here, what the proper authorities were, what our responsibility is as a council. I have grave concerns that we could be allowing for flooding in another part of the city in Riverside South. And we want to understand what the process is and what our council policy is clear on floodplain development. I do believe that our official plan is clear that we don't build on floodplains. There is the other side of the argument that the RVCA has full authority to change the flood plan. But I think that without this going to another independent authority, we will never get the answers that I believe we need. As a result, on this one, because it is part of that entire subdivision plan, I am going to vote against it today. Thank you.
Councillor Moffat, please.
Thank you. Obviously, I've been engaged in this file through my role with on the RVCA board, as well as on planning committee. I think Councillors McKenney and Meehan are aware that they attended a meeting that I helped coordinate with residents in the affected area, as well as the RVCA, in which we also were able to obtain and share the documents for the technical documents surrounding the floodplain alteration that was ultimately approved by the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority under Section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act. I just wanted to get, if I could, if Tim Mark is here, just a question on the relationship between Section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act and Section 58 of the City of Ottawa's zoning bylaw.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not certain of the question. I did review some case law in preparation for today's council meeting, and I went back to prior cases involving the city and issues related to the Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority. I can say that the Ontario Municipal Board, as it then was very clear that with respect to determining what is and what is not floodplain, it is the Conservation Authority to pronounce, Conservation Authority to make changes under Section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act, and then the city follows an implementation through the zoning bylaw, the provisions in Section 58 of the zoning bylaw, and the determination of the floodplain. It is the Conservation Authority who clearly has the lead, and it is the municipality that follows.
Thanks. Again, I know it's not necessarily municipal law, it's because it's Conservation Authorities Act, but are you aware of any requirements under the Conservation Authorities Act in Section 28 that would say that it needs to coincide with a planning application or development application?
I answered that question at committee, Mr. Mayor, and the answer was no.
That's what I thought, because there's some sort of assertion that the proper process wasn't followed here. And this is actually an aside from what's in front of us today. What we have in front of us today is a zoning bylaw amendment for housing not on the floodplain. The question at hand and the debate at hand is the floodplain mapping correct? That's not actually something for council to decide. Council implements floodplain mapping approved by the Conservation Authority. And it doesn't matter which Conservation Authority it is, whether it's South Nation or Rideau Valley or Mississippi. And we had this discussion actually at the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority board. We had an open session to discuss this file because it was garnering attention back in 2019. This was a decision made by the executive committee within their authority of the Conservation Authority board. And it was upon the recommendation from Conservation Authority staff. You know, you all know my opinion on agricultural lands. The RVCA is no different when it comes to floodplain lands. We don't care who owns what land. We don't care who the applicant is. All that matters is the protection of the watershed. That's their sole objective. They are beholden to no resident, to no company, and they are beholden only to the watershed, as per the Conservation Authorities Act. And as a member of the board and someone who is, I mean, there's been changes to the policies where next term of council, unless there's an exemption requested, you will have to have 5 members of this council sit on the Rideau Valley Conservation Board. I can tell you that I'm the only one who's attended for 10 years. You will have to have 5 of you to attend regularly. And perhaps if that was the case, we wouldn't have conversations like this because we would know the authority of the Conservation Authority and the work that they did on this file and others to approve floodplain mapping policy. I trust the work of the Conservation Authority. They were here, they came to Planning Committee, they did not have to. They came here, Glenn McDonald and Eric Lalonde, and they answered questions about a file that wasn't before committee because we have no authority to determine floodplain mapping in the city of Ottawa. That is entirely within the Conservation Authority. So there's a process for review. If you wish to do that, it's not through the Auditor General, but it's if Councillors McKenney and Meehan want to. But I would say that if you're going to malign the staff at the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority, I think you should do so transparently and with evidence. I don't think it's right to suggest wrongdoing when you have nothing to prove that such wrongdoing exists. Glenn McDonald has worked at the RVCA for the better part of 40 years. The RVCA does good work. The RVCA protects our watershed. It is not easy to alter a floodplain in the city of Ottawa or anywhere in any watershed because of the work that they do. And I think if you're going to go after the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority, just because you don't like the outcome of one of their decisions, you should do so with evidence and you should do so transparently.
Thank you. Councillor Kavanaugh, please.
Thank you. I just want to ask, who would have the authority to look into the RVCA? I think that Councillor McKenney was suggesting it's RAG, but I want to know if it sounds like that's not correct, but I just want to know if there's any concerns. Whose authority is to look into this decision based on recommendations from the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority? Can someone answer that?
Who knows that? Anyone from legal? Mr. White, Mr. Mark?
Mr. Mayor, certainly the city does not oversee the work of the Rideau or any of the conservation authorities. Staff can review that though and provide a response.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And obviously floodplains are a very sensitive issue. From what we went through in 2019, we need to make sure that that when people are building, that it's absolutely, because 20 years from now, when the people that are in those homes could have some issues, we want to make absolute sure that that everything is sound. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Meehan, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, everyone. Let me just say that I take offense to Councillor Moffat's suggestion that we are maligning the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority. We're doing no such thing. There are serious questions about how this fill permit was approved. That is a fact. There's a lot of unanswered questions that have gone along with this file. And the fact of the matter is, if everything has been above board and everything has been done to the best of everybody's ability, then there shouldn't be any problem with investigating how things happened. It stymies me that Councillor Moffat can, defend everybody but his own residents and the residents in my ward who potentially can be flooded out because of what's happened here. I'll just correct Councillor McKenney. It wasn't Riverside South that will have the flooding issue, but it will be residents of Ward 22, my ward, along Heart's Desire and the Jock River that potentially could be flooded. So I don't see any problem with having the Ombudsman or Ottawa's Auditor General take a look at the facts and figures in this case. This is serious. And Councillor Moffat, how can you? I just get I'm just stymied by some of the allegations that you make here. Why can't we ask more questions about this? Get meddling and asking why we're doing things and meddling in our ability to ask questions. You defend everybody but your own residents. And I'm just going to leave it there. I'm doing what I have to protect the residents in my ward, and I'm not going to make any apologies. I'm not trying to malign anyone. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of what happened and make sure that there is no flooding issues down the line. So thank you very much.
Councillor Moffat, your name was mentioned.
That's right. It was 3 times. If the member who just spoke was at Planning Committee, I believe they were, they will know that I defend those who live in the ward that I represent. I mentioned specifically the nature of the Jock River and how it runs from end to end, from Ashton, around Munster, through Richmond, and into Nepean before it enters into Ward 3 under the Forest 16 and into the area in question where the floodplain alterations were being made. The impact of floodplain alterations on Ward 21 are significant. Half of Richmond is in the floodplain. I spoke to that. I spoke to the potential impacts on residents in the ward that I represent. You say that you're not maligning, but to insinuate that I don't care about my constituents and that I'm too busy defending the RVCA is a clear misrepresentation of everything I've ever said. I have not mentioned your name, therefore you do not have the right to speak. I don't understand why every time I have to comment on something that pertains to the ward of Gloucester South Nepean, that it has to be seen as a personal attack. It's not. I personally do not care who the councillor is in Ward 22. I care about the work of the RVCA and the integrity of those who work there. And that's why I made the comments I made today. It has nothing to do with who the councillor is. It just doesn't. So you can move on from the pettiness of your comments about me and focus on the task at hand.
Okay, thank you. So we have the item before us, item 10, 3285 and 3305 Boris O'Kane Road, carried with dissent by Councillor McKenney.
Dissent.
Dissent. Dissent by Councillor Deans as well.
And Meehan.
And
Dissent.
Okay. Okay. Next, we have my note here. We have motion to adopt, disposition of items approved by committees under delegated authority received. Motion to adopt reports. Motion portant adoption de rapport. Councillor Kitts and Leeper, please. Councillor Kitts.
The Built Heritage Subcommittee Report 26, Community and Protective Services Committee Report 25, Standing Committee on Environmental Protection, Water and Waste Management Report 22, Planning Committee Report 59, Transit Commission Report 18, and the report from the City Clerk entitled Summary of Oral and Written Public Submissions for items subject to the Planning Act explanation requirements at the City Council meeting of April 13th, 2022 be received and adopted as amended.
On the motion, carried. Adopté. Motions of which notice have been previously given. Motion dont avis a été donné entièrement. Councillor Luloff, please. Second by Councillor Kitts.
Thank you very much. The motion on the screen. I think I tried to briefly speak about this last time when just giving notice of it, where the mayor duly reminded me that this was to be dealt with today. I won't go through all of the whereases here. I think that this is a fairly simple matter. The Petrie Island Canoe Club is in receipt of nearly $1 million of funding in order to build a storage facility which will eventually become a marina at Petrie Island in my ward. Petrie Island is enjoyed by people across the entire city and has such potential to house something like this. The Petrie Island Canoe Club has been an absolutely incredible asset to our community and has operated for years, either just off the beach or out of two sea containers where they store their materials. They've been recipients of Canada Summer Jobs grants. They hire they employ lifeguards. They employ instructors, paddling instructors, and it's such a good community building organization in our ward. This money comes with a time limit on it as well. So I'll take this opportunity to encourage staff to help them work through the site plan approvals to make sure that we do meet the time limit set by the federal government to use this. What I'm asking is that we declare 280 square meters of Petrie Island as surplus to the city's needs in order to allow the Petrie Island Canoe Club to begin construction on this marina. It'll essentially be a boat base. Right now, we've got to anchor sea containers to the ground to make sure that they don't float away or open up. Having a permanent structure at Petrie Island to ensure that our community has a place to go, to learn to paddle, to enjoy paddling, kayaking, and canoeing, I think is a really great cause, and I would really appreciate everyone's support. I realize that this is it's a bit odd having to go about it in this way, to declare such an important area to my ward as surplus. It certainly is not surplus in the manner in which you may think. This is just to ensure that they have a term of up to 25 years to use this area as a marine storage facility. And when we mean marine storage facility, we mean canoes and kayaks. So I just want to thank the federal government for their contribution to this incredible project, to Commodore Kennedy and to her entire team for their work on this. This is a great community building opportunity for my ward, and I hope everyone will please support it. Thank you.
Great.
Oh, I will mention as well that the three, I think four actually, Eastern councillors are all contributing to this project as well in the form of cash in the year of Parkland. So it's major endorsement at the political level as well for this project. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Leeper.
Thank you, Mayor. And thanks, Matt, for letting us know about that pooling of the CILP. That's innovative, and I'm really pleased to see it. I will be supporting this. Conceptually, I think I am still trying to understand how we're going to lease land to somebody that we've declared surplus. What is the long-term future of this parcel as a piece of city real estate if it has been declared surplus, but we still want to keep it within our control? Are we obligated at some point to begin a process 40 years from now when this facility is at the end of lifespan?
That is an excellent question. I think I see our friend Tim Mark making his way up to. Sorry, Tim, we're giving you an aerobic workout today. I apologize for that. I'm not quite certain of the internal machinations of this, and basically I'm just talking right now just to give Tim a chance to sit down at the table. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just a conceptual challenge for me.
Mr. Mark?
Mr. Mayor, I believe the need to declare it surplus is because it's a longer period than 21 years, which is a standard period where one needs to take a further process, but it does not commit the city to any disposition beyond that being approved by council today.
Okay, so there is, this doesn't lock us into a disposal at some point down the road. As long as the city wants to maintain ownership of this parcel, it can.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Perfect. That's the reassurance I was looking for. Thank you. Thank you very much, Matt.
Great. Thank you.
Totally
very
understand
much.
how this is a kind of a confusing way to go about it. So I really do appreciate everyone's indulgence on it.
On the motion, carried. Adopté. Thank you. Congratulations, Councillor. Next, motion by Councillor El Shantiri, seconded by Councillor Tierney. There's a revised motion. We'll put it up on the screen. I think just one or two different words. Councillor El Shantiri, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This motion, as you indicated, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Tierney. I'm going to read whereas it's not very long, so just so to put it in a context, whereas the city has prioritized keeping critical infrastructure in a state of good repair while remaining affordable and sustainable. Following council approval asset management practice and funding target established in 2012 and updated in 2017, and whereas the city asset management plans and long-range financial plans help to establish the capital funding requirements over the long term, and whereas capital projects are provided annually as a part of capital budget process or as a report to council throughout the year. Council approved these projects based on information available at the time, and whereas the subsequent scope change can have a material impact on the cost of the project and may impact funding available for other planned capital projects. So therefore be it resolved that staff review that processes and criteria exist for bringing capital project changes to council for approval. And be it further resolved that staff review what mechanism exists to identify the impact of council decision on overall renewal program. And therefore further be it resolved that staff report back to council by Q3 2023 with the finding and opportunity for improvement.
Great. Councillor Menard, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I don't have really an opinion on this one way or the other. I'm just trying to understand where it's coming from. What's the impetus for it? Is there a particular project? Is there something? What's driving the motion? There's more information either from the movers or staff.
Thank you, Councilor Menard. One of the questions we had seen and happened before, some of the changes. So we have the comprehensive asset management program, we have the long-range financial plan, and they go hand in hand and with the timeline. But sometimes when some unforeseen changes, either directly or indirectly, that will change is going with the comprehensive asset management, like how to accomplish what you were hoping to accomplish with the funding because of the changes. What I'm asking here in the future, and I'm leaving it to staff to identify, because I don't want every item need to come to council for review. But if there is a major changes, it should come to full council. We need to understand that changes in what's been recommended here, it's going to have impact on other projects. So basically, if we go and over what we said we're going to do on project A, so project B is going to be delayed or it might not even get done. So it should come back to full council and debate this and see, where's the funds going to come from and which project is going to sacrifice to be able to do more than what was in the original plan. So there's nothing for us today, but in the future, and we're asking staff by Q3 in 2023 to bring back to this council or future council how we're going to deal with this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to hear staff on it. I understand what you're saying. That's helpful context. But I know our staff do a great job with looking at projects in the queue and deciding what's possible for that year. And sometimes things do shift around. It's difficult because sometimes as a councillor you rely on those projects right in your ward, and sometimes they have an effect on something else. But usually there's good reason for that, or it's unforeseen. So great to get staff comment if they feel this work is doable and supported. Just the extra context is helpful. Thanks. I can just hear from staff there.
We have Tammy Rose here, but perhaps you can answer that.
Ms. Rose?
GM Rose here.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can confirm that staff is supportive of the motion. So as the councillor mentioned, there are a number of projects and scope changes, but I think to Councillor Menard's question, we also want to not increase administrative burden and have to come to council with all changes. So I think it's an important question for us to take back and take a look at what is our delegated authority, how our processes for scope changes, how it develops, and if there are any requirements to come back to council, either for increasing funding or to move priorities and be clear. So I think there's a question of transparency in terms of if some decisions turn into major financial implications.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you.
Right, Councillor McFleury.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Puis, j'apprécie la motion.
Well, I appreciate the motion. I don't necessarily see a problem with this. It has to be done. We always try to improve our processes, but I have two small questions to confirm, because we have policies in place, such as the Complete Streets policy, as well as a directive that was given for main streets to bury the electrical lines, for instance. Could this have an impact on these directives? If it is, no, we maintain all the policies that are in place, but if we are going to start reconsidering policies that are already in place, I'd have a bit of a problem. Could you answer this? Yes, Mr. Mayor, I can confirm to the councillor that this review will not change the directives given to staff. There won't be a revision of these decisions. The decisions have been made and are being considered when we're looking at projects and we are establishing the scope of the project. So I can confirm that this is not going to happen. I thank you, and thanks to my colleague for presenting this motion.
Adopté. Motions requiring suspension of the rules of procedures, motion exigeant la suspension des règles de procédure. Councillor Luloff has a motion. Yes. Seconded by Councillor Dudas. Road closures for Orleans Poutine Fest. On suspension, carried. Councillor Legrand, peut-être.
Understanding the timing of this is quite awkward, given further discussions that we've been having at the table today regarding other incidents over the course of this weekend. But Orleans Poutine Fest is occurring on Friday, May 6, 2022 through Sunday, May 8, 2022 on Centrum Boulevard from Brisebois. Prestone Drive is required to be closed to accommodate the festival for on-street festival setup. So therefore be it resolved that we approve the road closure for Centrum Boulevard from Brisebois Crescent to Prestone Drive from 9 a.m. on Thursday, May 5th, 12 p.m. noon to Monday, May 9th, 2022 for the Orleans Poutine Fest, providing that it meets the requirements, conditions, and approval of Special Events Advisory Team seat.
A motion carried. Adopt A. Next motion requires suspension of the rules of procedures by Councillor Curry, seconded by myself with respect to the Canada Golf Course. It's essential that the motion be done before the provincial election is called. On suspension, carried. Councillor Curry, if you'd like to introduce the motion, please.
Yes, thank you very much for that. First of all, I'd just like to thank, before I read what I need to read here, I'd just like to thank city staff, legal staff, the mayor for helping me with this. So my first motion, and I needed some help. So thank you very much for that. There are a lot of whereas clauses that you all received earlier today. I'm assuming you read them all. I'm not going to read them all. However, they are lengthy and they tell quite a long story. So I will start with reading the therefore part, and then I will try to add to the story. So based on all the whereases up above and bringing you up to speed and up to date on what's going on with these lands in Canada, therefore be it resolved that the province is requested to use any and all tools available to it, including but not limited to an order by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing under Section 47 of the Planning Act to ensure the conservation of the Canada Golf Course green space landscape. Number 2, special legislation to ensure the conservation of the Canada Golf Course as open space for recreation and natural environment purposes. 3, an order by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing establishing the Canada Golf Course lands as a development planning area under the Ontario Planning and Development Act, and preparation and approval of the development plan to ensure the conservation of the Canada Golf Course. And 4, the Attorney General of Ontario intervening in support of the city in the appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada regarding the 40% agreement. And be it further resolved that the province is requested to fully support the city in proceedings related to the conservation of the Canada Golf Course, green space, and protection of the 1981 agreement. So just to introduce now and make my comments, I also would like to thank Barbara Ramsey, the chair of the Canada Green Space Protection Coalition, for her help in getting me to where I am today. So this motion before you is to ask the province to help the community of Canada North, yes, but very importantly to help the city. And that's an important thing to understand. It is important for everyone here to understand that this motion, if heeded by the provincial government, may very well help all taxpayers, all municipalities, other provinces, and other governments. The whereas clauses you've all read already when you received a copy of this motion earlier tell the story of why it is important for the province to step in now and help. There's a long story here that began with a high number of elected, not appointed people like me, who were a part of getting us to this state. People like John Malak, Marianne Wilkinson, Des Adams, Merle Nichols, Alex Munter, Peggy Feltmate, Marianne Wilkinson again, and Jenna Sutz. All of these people were part of creating and preserving Canada's green space by creating, following, planning around, and respecting the 40% agreement that is still in place today. For hours, we could talk about the environment, climate change, our tree canopy goals, the city's special economic zone in Canada North, the challenges with talent acquisition, and the tech parks companies' environmental policies. However, what this issue really comes down to, as Sir Terence Matthews asks me every time I meet with him, what about integrity, Kathy? What about that? What we have in front of us here is an ask of the province to step in to help us, as was done in Oakville, because we have a developer who signed an agreement a number of years ago when they purchased the land, fully knowing that the land they were buying was protected in perpetuity to be green space, and now has decided they don't feel like honoring the agreement they signed. When they signed it, there was no misunderstanding. They knew exactly what they were buying and what they agreed to. Now they're saying, well, who cares about that? And as they own a lot of land all over North America that is protected by long-term land agreements, their real goal here is to set precedent. They have deep pockets and billions of dollars to gain if they can set precedent here in Canada to get rid of agreements with in perpetuity clauses. The most recent OLT decision ruled that ClubLink could theoretically build on this green space if it met the 192 conditions, which include NCC and MCVA approvals. The city staff know there's no stormwater management plan that is acceptable. The community is in court right now arguing that there are restrictive covenants on the land. To come, there will be action regarding contamination issues from longstanding chemical use on the golf course that could affect all of us. Lawsuits by individual homeowners who have also individual agreements will be next. The costs are exorbitant. The community is nearing $500,000 in costs. The city is nearing $1 million, and that will grow as we go through this for the next 10, 15, 20 years. Who knows how many more years we will go through this if the province doesn't step in. Hence, I've been asked, with the support of every single community association in Canada North, Canada Beaverbrook Community Association, Canada Lakes Community Association, Morgan's Grant Briarbrook Brookside Community Association, Arcadia Community Association, in addition to the Canada North associations, and of course, the Canada Green Space Protection Coalition, to ask the province, the only level of government right now who can immediately stop this, to do so. They did it for Glen Abbey, they can do it here. In the conversations with the MPP for Oakville and the mayor of Oakville, who have been super supportive, we are doing here exactly what they did in Oakville in their fight against this very same developer. If we do not ask the province for help, this city—
Sorry,
Yes.
You're over your time, so you can finish it because you can wrap up, but we'll ask any other questions or comments first, and then we'll get back to you.
Okay.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay. Councillor Menard.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Previously, our council gave funding for this, for a court battle. So just, is there a legal staff here that can update us on where that stands and the funding that was provided by council for this issue previously?
Mark, you're very busy today.
Mr. Mayor, there are, we started off with one application to Superior Court. That is branched out because of decision in the Court of Appeal where we were partially unsuccessful into two elements. We have sought leave to appeal from the Supreme Court of Canada on the element where we were unsuccessful, which was the requirement to convey the land to us if it's not being used as a golf course, and we await the decision as to whether or not leave will be granted. The Court of Appeal remitted to Superior Court, Mr. Justice LaBosse, the question of the status of the balance of the agreement with the requirement to convey being excised. And so that will be heard by the Superior Court in a time frame that depends on whether or not leave is granted by the Supreme Court of Canada.
Okay. And is there a timeline on that in terms of when that might be heard? Recognize there's a provincial election, but is there a timing on when that will be heard by the court? So
the actions by the court are not dependent on any election that will occur. This is the first Supreme Court of Canada matter that I'm associated with. I'm not counsel on the matter, but it's the first matter of any kind that I'm associated with. And I will speculate that we'll get a decision in the third quarter as to whether or not leave is granted, but that is just a speculation. And if leave is granted, then it would be argued sometime in 2023. The Superior Court will not take up this matter until the item in front of the Supreme Court of Canada is resolved.
Okay, just seeing that it's before the courts, there's a full process there. We're talking about the Supreme Court here. Concerning to have a motion come forward on suspension without going to Planning Committee, have full debate, given all the funding and other areas that we've put forward with this. So I appreciate that. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Leeper.
Thank you, Mayor. Unfortunately, this is the first I'm seeing of this. So I'm going to ask for some political advice probably from Mr. Willis in open forum. This is probably a conversation I would have liked to have had more informally. But the Canada Club is not Glen Abbey. Obviously, Glen Abbey is an institution in Canada. I can well understand the thrust to try to maintain it. The provincial government has made it very clear that it wants more housing built. The task force, Bill 109, are all in the direction of trying to build more housing. If we ask the province to intervene in the case of the Canada Club, is there a risk that they may look at it as a prime development opportunity to build more housing going into a provincial election when a large number of voters across the province are seeking the help of the province to build more housing? Is this going to become a question of careful what you ask for? I don't know if Mr. Willis is on the line or if anyone can answer that.
Just before he gets on the line, I can certainly indicate, I think Councillor Curry can confirm that Minister Fullerton has in the past asked for a motion of this kind. So she is a provincial minister and she's asked for it, and we wanted to get it to her before the writ was dropped.
Okay, so this is so they've given you some indication then that there's a degree of chance of success here, and that it won't, okay. All right, that's useful. Thank you.
Councillor Deans, please.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, you may have partially answered my question, but presuming this motion is going to pass, as it's written right now, it does not indicate to who and how this information will be communicated to the province. So is it just to Minister Fullerton? Is it to someone else? Are we asking for a meeting? Are we writing a letter? The motion is silent in its current form on that. I just wondered if something could be added that had a little more direction.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor, for that. My interpretation is that therefore be it resolved is directing me as the mayor to write to the minister and to local MPPs. So that's the intention, I think, Councillor Curry.
Yeah, if this motion passes, then there would be a message from you that it did and what is in it, obviously.
Right. Councillor Moffat, please.
I couldn't sit silent while someone suggested that Glen Abbey was a great golf course. It's just a stadium course in Toronto, and RBC wants to be in Toronto for the Canadian Open. That's why it's always at Glen Abbey. It's not Shaughnessy. It's not the Hunt Club. It's just a big golf course that can fit a lot of fans. So don't make it about the golf course because Glen Abbey wasn't saved because it's a great golf course. Glen Abbey was saved because the people who live there didn't want to lose the green space, which is no different than what's going on in Canada. The people in Canada didn't want to lose their green space. The folks in Stonebridge didn't want to lose their green space. It's that. It's not the status of Glen Abbey, because if you look at the top golf courses in Canada, Glen Abbey isn't there.
All right, thank you, Arnold Palmer, for that update. So we're now back to Councillor Curry. You can now wrap up by finishing your remarks.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that. So I guess my main comment here is that if we don't ask the province for help, this city is going to go through court action after court action, spending time and money, rejecting proposals and going to court because a developer has no regard for a contract that it signed in good faith. This developer is not stopped now. Long-term land agreements that municipalities enter into will mean nothing. Think about that. That's why this motion is not only about Canada, and it has nothing to do with golf, really. This is about government setting precedent on integrity. Not one developer setting precedent who has little regard for signed agreements, the environment, the health of communities, and no regard for municipal governments. So I think it's important that this be a unanimous vote, and I certainly look forward to your help. Thank you very much for all of your help, everyone.
Great. I just want to offer a couple of comments. First of all, to congratulate Councillor Curry. This is her first motion, and it's an important issue. It's I think the biggest issue in your particular community, because this is about taking away space for cross-country skiers and snowshoers and so on in the winter, using that 40% agreement. And I also want to commend the community. They have raised a lot of money. I've been to a number of their fundraisers over the course of the last couple of years. Barbara Ramsey was pointed out as the chair of the Green Space Coalition, but she's got a great team around her. And certainly all of the individuals, a little walk through Canada history tells you, going back to Councillor Wilkinson, Des Adam, and Peggy Feltmate, Alex Munter, Merle Nichols, who I am looking forward to seeing next week, as well as Jenna Sudds, the former councillor, now the MP for the area. They've all been behind this, and excuse me, I would hope that we have a good vote of support, excuse me, for this important item of principle, because it's not just about a golf course, it's about the principle of signing an agreement, paying a premium as a homeowner to back onto green space, and then having that agreement ripped up and declared null and void. So on the motion as presented by Councillor Curry, carried?
Carried.
Thank you. Any other motions requiring suspension of the rules of procedure? Notice of motion for consideration at subsequent meeting. Avis de motion par examen en réunion subséquente. Councillor Brockington, please, seconded by Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just read into the record the motion, and then we can discuss at our next meeting. It's regarding the prohibition of driving instruction within a defined area within River Ward. So as whereas the City of Ottawa, through Section 2 of its licensing bylaw 2002-189, licenses driving school operators and driving instructors. And whereas in both 2007 and 2011, Council amended Schedule 2 of Bylaw 2002-189 to prohibit driving instruction within defined areas adjacent to the Ministry of Transportation drive test offices located at 5303 Kanatech Road and 1570 Walkley Road, respectively, in order to address ongoing issues with increased traffic and potential safety concerns in the residential areas adjacent to test facilities. And whereas the MTO has recently established a temporary drive test office at the Hunt Club Plaza at 3310 McCarthy Road, resulting in increased traffic volume on adjacent residential streets, including Lilico, Bennett, and Erin. And whereas there are safety concerns expressed by the community in this regard, and therefore the matter is time sensitive. Therefore, be it resolved that Council approve amendments to Schedule 2 of Bylaw 2002-189 to prohibit driving instruction within a defined area, including Lilico, Bennett, and Erin, and being adjacent to the temporary MTO drive test office at 3310 McCarthy. And be it further resolved that staff be delegated authority to bring forward an amending bylaw to repeal the amending provision within 6 months of the closure of the MTO's temporary drive test office at 3310 McCarthy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. The next motion, notice of motion is by Councillor Cloutier, please. Do you have a seconder, Councillor? Do you have a seconder?
Yes, Councillor King will be seconding this when it comes forward next council meeting. Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Just read it quickly into the record, and we will discuss it next meeting. It's with respect to memorial plaque at Grasshopper Hill Park. Whereas in post-World War II Ottawa, renowned French planner Jacques Grébert was tasked by Prime Minister Mackenzie King with planning our national capital in memory of Canadians who gave their lives in World War II and to accommodate population growth while accentuating Ottawa's natural beauty. Whereas the Grébert report retained and enhanced Ottawa's green spaces, including Grasshopper Hill Park. Grasshopper Hill Park. Whereas in 1995, a commemorative plaque was established in Grasshopper Hill Park recognizing this work. Whereas a memorial tree was planted on May 5th, 1995 to honor those brave Canadians for whom the report was designed in memory of. And whereas the current plaque and tree commemorating the Grébert report enacted by Mackenzie King's government in honor of World War II soldiers has reached their end of life. Whereas the Green Space Stewardship Committee, aligned through the Alta Vista Community Association, have championed the replacement, relocation, and updated version of this commemoration, including now text in both Canada's official languages. Whereas the cost of the commemorative tree planted in the fall, to be planted in the fall of 2022, and accompanying plaque will be paid for by the Green Space Stewardship Committee. Whereas city staff have worked with the community and agree upon a suitable location nearby and in the same park space as the old commemorative plaque and tree. Therefore, be it resolved that City Council approve the relocation and installation of a new tree and updated plaque in Grasshopper Hill Park. Be it further resolved that the plaque read quotation, the Mackenzie King government dedicated the planning of the national capital to the memory of Canadians who gave their lives to the nation in the Second World War. This memorial was placed on Grasshopper Hill to honor those brave Canadians. Take a moment, feel the peace, consider their sacrifice. Et en français, le gouvernement de Mackenzie King a dédié le plan d'aménagement de la capitale nationale à la mémoire des Canadiens et des Canadiens.
The government dedicated the planning of the national capital to the memory of Canadians who gave their life to the nation during the Second World War. This memorial was placed on Grasshopper Hill to honor those brave Canadians. Take a moment, feel this peace, and consider their sacrifice.
Merci. We'll discuss this at the next council meeting. Are there any other notices of motion for duration to subsequent meeting? Motion to introduce bylaws. Councillor Kitts, please. Seconded by Councillor Leeper.
Que les règlements énumérés à l'ordre du jour sous le
That the bylaws listed in the agenda under motion to introduce bylaw, 3 readings, be read and passed. Adopted? Carried.
Kitts and Leeper, please.
that the following bylaw be read and passed to confirm the
following bylaw
proceedings
be
of the
read and
council
passed.
meeting of April 27th, 2022.
Carried. Any written inquiries, Madam Clerk? Adjournment, Councillor Kitts? Sorry, we have it in writing? Okay.
I see it on the screen here. Yeah. So on November 2022, on November 22nd, 2017, motion 6111, a motion creating a site plan review and program advisory committee from the Salvation Army site plan application 325, 327, 333 Montreal Road, 334 Montfort, and 273 Saint-Anne was carried by City Council. This motion was struck to provide input into the next phase of the Salvation Army relocation and development. An initial meeting of the committee was held on April 17th, 2018. A second meeting was not scheduled at that time. Late last year, a restart of the committee meetings occurred on October 20th, 2021. At this meeting, the Salvation Army began a presentation. This meeting offered no review of the terms of reference, and there was no mention of the programming aspects. At the next meeting on December 13, 2021, the process seemed to restart in earnest with a new presentation from the Salvation Army. Due to the complexity of the project and the mandate to discuss both the site plan and programming issues, the presentation took another 2 meetings to complete, January 13th and March 30th, 2022. On April 13, 2022, an email from Charmaine Forgy, Manager of Business and Technical Support Services, advised committee stakeholders the mandate of the committee had been fulfilled. Given that staff believed that the Site Plan Review and Programming Advisory Committee mandate was fulfilled after the Salvation Army completed their presentation on March 30th, will staff be preparing a report on the input that the committee provided and how the ideas and stakeholders' feedback from the Advisory Committee will be incorporated in the site plan? And will this be shared with council? Additionally, could staff respond to 1? Can staff respond on how the governance, the terms of reference, the process, and the timelines for the advisory committee expected to follow were met, and how staff felt that was ultimately achieved in the completion of the committee? And then 2, staff have set a finite date for the Salvation Army site plan application, removing delegation of authority and creating a special planning committee meeting to discuss. A, why was this approach decided by planning staff for this application, and can staff offer examples for when this was done in the past, specific to when council would have mandated an advisory committee to offer input on a site plan and the outcome of the decision? B, what input from the advisory committee has been incorporated into the site plan to date? C, can staff explain how any further input from the advisory committee and community members since March 30th will be considered and included in the requirements for this proposal of in site plan report? D, as a ward council public meeting will be held on May 11th, what efforts will the city undertake to ensure meaningful consideration to the community and stakeholders' feedback? And then E, will the applicant be required to resubmit prior to planning committee date a common requirement for these reviews based on city, council, and community feedback?
Okay, is it possible to get a list of the members of the advisory committee and what their position was prior to their first meeting? Councillor Fleury? Is it possible to get a list of the members of the advisory committee? I'm just interested in what their position was prior to their first meeting. If that could be added in. Right, okay, thank you. Adjournment. Councillor Kitts, please.
Que les délibérations du Conseil
That the proceedings of the City Council meeting of April 27, 2022 be adjourned. Carried.
Will take place at 12:40. Conférence de presse commencera à 12:40. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.